All right, confirmands, we're taking a look at lesson 19. Jesus heals at Bethsaida. Um, we're also going to be looking, just as a reminder, your memory verse for this week is Romans 8:28. You'll also be encouraged to read Matthew chapter 17. Well, let's go to this healing that Jesus brings at Bethsaida. It's from John chapter 5, verses 1 through 18. There's two ways that we can look at these things, in fact. And as we had a conversation this last week about Jesus coming into the world uh, uh, to save not only you and I, but all of creation from sin and death. One thing that we talked about this last week was that Jesus cares for us as a whole person, um, not just physically and not just spiritually, but that when Jesus comes to bring his salvation, it's for us as a whole person, body and soul. That's the way God intended us to be. Remember in Genesis 2:7, we had that memory verse where Lord formed man out of the dust of the earth and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and he became a living being. So body and soul is the way that we were created. When sin comes into the world, the horrible thing is that sin and the consequence of death separates the body from soul and the creature from the creator. The good news is that God doesn't just let us die in our sin. He comes to bring salvation. He comes to rescue us, really. Um, and he comes to do it to care for our body and our soul. That's the beautiful thing about Jesus. Jesus doesn't come as some angel or some spiritual being. He literally takes up the flesh of Adam, right? You and I, and in it contains the fullness of God. So Jesus is fully man and fully God, truly man. And so when he comes to care for people, and when we read about that in the Gospels, he's not just concerned about their physical well-being or just their spiritual well-being. He cares for the whole person. So we'll find here a person who was um, uh, unable to walk. And this person was waiting to go into into the pool of Bethsaida, and um, um, and instead this man encounters Jesus, and there's a conversation there, and Jesus tells the man to get up, take his mat, and walk, and he does. But Jesus doesn't just say, you're physically healed. He also speaks to him about sin and about life and that's found in Jesus, right? Because that's what Jesus is about: the healing of both the body and the soul. Now, all of these miracles that Jesus does in his ministry, where he cares for body and soul, they're all pointing towards his ultimate show of care and healing that takes place on the cross. Because on the cross, that's where Jesus takes all the sickness and the infirmity, the disease that is brought about by sin and that separation that comes and ultimately leads to death, right? He takes that all upon himself, and he dies in our place. He suffers what we should have suffered. And then he is buried in the ground, and just as everyone before who has died, from dust you have come, to dust you will return. Except Jesus isn't just a dusty man. On the third day he rises again victorious, right? Still in his body, but changed. And as he does so, he has now made way a path of healing for all people, uh, where he would not just care for the spirit, but also the body. And so, as he is risen from the dead, the hope is, when I say hope, I don't mean like kind of the wishful thinking. I mean the true and certain hope that we have in Jesus is that as Christ has risen from the dead, we will too. Our dusty bodies that return to the ground will be raised up, just like his body was. And the good news is that while we wait for that to happen, um, we still have a new life now, a spiritual life in him, a life knowing that we are forgiven, knowing that our lives are found in him, knowing that um, um, we may love and serve other people, not simply because we have to, but because Jesus has done that for us. And it's a spiritual reality of who we are. And so we desire to serve other people in love as well. So as we come to this, read through that. You'll see that there's two types of page 40. We'll talk about two types of disabilities. I want you to think about those things as you're going through, and then on page 41, we'll talk about an earthly cure versus an eternal cure. And I want you to see that when Jesus comes, it's not simply for the short run, but for the long run, for eternity. All right. Well, blessings as you study and as you read, as you memorize Romans 8:28. And I think in that passage you'll find that this kind of ties all together quite nicely. And again, read Matthew chapter 17 for this week. The Lord's blessings, and we'll see you on Sunday.